How's it going, everyone, and welcome back to another video at Battlegrounds Game Center. I'm Patrick, and today we're going to be running through how to play Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone. This is a new two-player skirmish game set in the world of Cyberpunk, where you're going to be building your gangs, outfitting them with gear, and going to the streets to fight other gangs, either in a one-off scenario or through campaign play. This video, we are going to be learning the basics of how to play a one-off game. We won't be going over campaign play, but all the rules of what you need for that will be in the rule book. All right, so let's first go ahead and take a look at your gang, how you build it, and get ready to play. So the gang I picked for today's demo is going to be Generation Red. They are probably my favorite faction of this. They're a bunch of gun-toting children. They have a lot of fun, unique mechanics, and they're a lot of fun to play, so highly recommend them. But there are a bunch of gangs from Tiger Claws to Maelstrom that come in the starter set to even more, so you can really find your favorite type of style and really run with it. So these are my models for Generation Red, which have all been painted by Adam Rankin at our store. So big shout out to him. I'll actually leave his Instagram link down below so you can see some more of his work. He's a really good commission painter and I highly recommend him. But so you can see these are my models here. So I got like my leader, some of my specialists and so on. So when we look at our cards though, they're going to have a few different breakdowns. So they're going to have the number of actions that they take, which is the green here and the yellow, which is going to be represented by these tokens. They have their stats, which are going to be used to augment dice rolls. They have any special abilities listed here and any included gear that are on the card that they are already built in with. Then they also have their cost, which is going to be in Eurobucks, or EB as it's shortened down. So when you're building your team, again, you're going to be looking at your Eurobucks here, which if you're going to be playing a 100-point game, it's going to be 100 Eurobucks. You're going to pick your members here, so like 20, 15, 20, and so on. And you can obviously add more. And then you'll be able to add gear from your specific gear deck. Now, in a campaign, you'll actually be adding these gear over time, but in a one-off, you can just buy your gear. Now, a few things to keep in note, though, is a lot of your gear is going to have rarities, which means that they can only have one of those in a gang. So like there's one there, there's two here, so I can have 2 Molotov cocktails. But you can have any number of gear as long as you can afford it and you don't go over the rarity. In addition, some of them are going to have street cred requirements. So like this right here requires 1 street cred. The rest of them are 0. So your street cred is going to be your stars here. So in campaign, you'll be upgrading to veterans and stuff. But during one-off games, you can automatically upgrade your guys by spending an additional 5 Eurobucks per star. So like if I started at high stick at level 1, he would just cost 20, but since I have the star here, he's going to cost 25. And that gives me 1 street cred, which allows me to take this 1 armored plating street cred gear card. So that's the basics of how you're going to build your team. For more advanced stuff, you can go ahead and look in the rulebook, as well as for campaign play. The only other additional thing you need to know is if you want to include Gonks into your team. So I have 1 Gonk here. Sometimes you'll have multiple options, but this is the one I picked for today. You can include any number of Gonks equal to your influence, which is going to be this little exclamation point here in your team. So right now I have 2, and then I have 3. So I could include 3 of these Gonks. However, I only got 2 of them, so we're just going to include 2 for today's demo. And then over here for my demo, I'm going to be fighting some Tiger Claws. These are what their cards look like, very similar with their actions, their stats, and so on. No tokens because we're not really going to be activating them, but I just wanted to give you a look at what they look like. In addition, when you're building your team, you're also going to have the scenario cards here. Now, I'm not playing with any specific scenario today, just for the demo purposes of showing you how things work, but there are tons that come in the main core set, as well as whenever you buy a new gang, you'll get your own special scenario, which is really cool. And they all operate completely different. They have different deployment zones, different setups, who goes first, and so on. So, and then if you're playing 2 players, it'll tell you here, but sometimes they'll have 4 players, because you can go up to 4 players in this game, like team gang play. So keep a lookout for that. But there are so many different cards and different scenarios. And it's one of the cool things about this game is there's a lot of variety in how you play, and every scenario is completely different with like objectives and how you need to win it. So we won't be playing any specific scenario, but those are there to show you that there's tons of variation in this game, and there's a lot of cool ways to play, whether you're doing one-off or campaign game. So before we get started with all the different basic actions, I just wanted to give you a look at the battlefield I have here. Now this board, as well as this cardboard terrain, actually comes in the starter set. as well as one of these canisters, but you can actually get more, as well as like MDF terrain. You can get play mats. So the starter set has a lot of cool stuff with the terrain and the cards, and you actually get 2 full gangs with the Tiger Claws and Maelstrom. So it's a really good deal just to start off. And then all the different gangs are only about 40 bucks each. So I mean, really, you could just buy a gang and play if somebody already has all this stuff. So it's a really low cost of entry to get going with this this game, so I really like that. Each player will also start with 3 luck tokens. These are used to re-roll your skill dice in opposed rolls in the game. And then if you actually have less EB than the opponent, then you also start with an additional luck token. So keep that in mind when you're starting, don't forget it. So before we move on with the game, I just want to go over some of the skills that are included on all the different cards and how they function. Because when you roll dice, you're going to be looking at the skills you have that are going to help augment those dice. So we have reflexes, which are used for movement, climbing, jumping, and so on, and opposing ranged actions, like as if you're dodging out of the way. You have ranged attacks for whenever you're shooting, melee for whenever you're in melee, medical when you're trying to heal an ally, tech for any kind of hacking or net running, and an influence, which is going to be used for how many gonks you have, as well as when you're giving control to other allies, but we will get to that here when we get into actions. Okay, so when you're ready to start taking actions, the person that has control, based off your scenario or however you're doing it, it'll tell you who starts with control. When you have control, you're going to pick one of your characters to activate their actions. You can do any number of actions that they have. So in this case, High Stick would have 3 actions. They would have 2 green and 1 yellow. They could spend 1 action here by flipping a token to move, attack, shoot, whatever they want to do during their turn. And then at that point, they could end their turn and give control to the opposing player, and when it comes back to them, they can continue to activate High Stick. So you don't have to activate all of your actions all at once. You can do them 1 at a time. You can do 2 and then pass and then 1 later. So there's a lot of really good ways to set yourself up, see what your opponent is doing, and react accordingly. So when you're taking actions, you're going to have the listed number of actions up here on the top left. So you have 3 actions, 2 at green, 1 at yellow. This is going to dictate how good those actions are. He is my leader, which you can only have 1 of in your gang, but you can have any number of other models in your gang. And he'll have special abilities. This is his skills, so he's got a melee, a ranged, and an influence skill here, as well as a power glove, which is a built-in gear card. So when I want to take an action with him, I'm going to take one of my unused action tokens. So right now, this is unused. If I flip it, it's been used. I will choose one of these, I'll flip it over, and I'll take the corresponding action that I chose. The different type of actions are going to be a move action, where you're going to take your limiter here, and then you'll be able to move a distance based off the color of the action that you chose. So like say he chose green, so he'll have the full breadth of movement, which is 12 inches, to move within that space. You could take a ranged action, which allows you to do a basic range of shooting from yellow to green. So if I'm trying to shoot something that's farther away, as long as it's not within red, I can take that action if it's within the yellow and green to shoot at him. You can do a basic melee action, which is if the opponent is within red, you'll be able to melee them. You can do a medical. If you pick a teammate that is redlined, which we will get to, you'll be able to heal one of those wounds by doing a skill test. You could do a tech action, which is removing hack tokens or performing net running abilities, or you can do a basic influence action, which uses the red here to give control to another one of your allies. So what I'm going to do is go through each of those actions one by one and show you examples of how those work and what can happen during those actions. Okay, so say I want to do a move action here with Apex. I'm going to pick one of my tokens here. I have 2 green and 1 yellow. I'll be able to flip over one of them to show that I'm taking an action with it. And then I'm going to choose to move. So since I flipped over a green token, I'll get to move the full length of the limiter, since the green is 12 inches. And you can see here there's a line that goes all the way up, all the way to the end. That's how far I can move with Apex. Now when you're moving, sometimes there'll be obstacles or it'll be open movement. Currently we have open movement with no obstacles in my way. So I'm going to take Apex here and I'm going to move him. And I'm going to place him right next to that opponent. So that would be an open movement. Now, say there was an obstacle in my way, which is this barrier here. It is below red, so it's something that I can move over. And when I say below red, it means it is below red on the limiter here. Now this is something I can move over or parkour over and keep moving. So what will happen is I will take my movement, I will go up to the barrier, and then I'm going to need to make an opposed skill roll against this barrier. So I'm going to take a colored die corresponding to the action token I use, so that's going to be green. And then I'm going to take the black obstacle die, which is used for the environment when you're doing skill test. Then I'm going to roll both of them, and then I'm going to look at the results. Now currently, I have a fumble, which is actually an automatic fail, so I would stop my movement and it would end my action. Say, however, I rolled a 7. This would be 7 over 6, so I would pass the opposed skill check, and I would get to continue my full movement as I saw fit, ending wherever I'd want within the green. Had I rolled a 6 or below, I would have failed, and I would have had to end my movement at the obstacle, and then use another action to continue over it, or around it. If I had rolled a crit, it would have been an automatic success, and I would have carried on through the obstacle as well. Some pieces of terrain will actually have windows and doors that would be treated as obstacles as well. So if I wanted to run up to this window, I would then have to take another opposed skill check to see if I get through the window and keep going. Otherwise, you'll stop if you fail. Any piece of terrain that is solid and higher than red is considered a barrier, meaning you can't move through it. However, you can climb up barriers. So say I have my full movement of green here and I want to end up at the top of this barrier. I will go ahead and move right to the edge of it. And then I'm going to check here. So I got to the yellow. I'm going to angle it here. I would be able to clear to the top if I want to keep going, if I want to clamber up. So you would still do an opposed skill roll to see if you get to the top. So I'm going to take my dice. I'm going to give them a roll. So it's a 7 to a 5, which would then allow my character to move their way to the top. However, had I failed that roll, you would actually move your character all the way to the top, and then they would drop and fall and possibly take some wounds, depending on the height of the object. If it's within red, they will not take any damage. If it's yellow, they'll take 1 wound, and if they are red, they'll take 2 wounds. Anything higher, they're immediately taken out of the game. I'll explain wounds and how those are applied later once we get into combat. Another type of move is jumping gaps. You may jump gaps between objects as long as they are no longer in red on your limiter. When you make a jump, you're going to make a skill check and see if you succeed. If you fail, you'll actually fall in the middle, and you'll take fall damage depending on how high you fell from. Another thing that can happen while you're moving is if you're moving through enemy models. So say I choose to move past this guy here onto the opposite side. First, you're going to stop within reach of them, and then you're going to take an opposed roll if they have any actions to do so. So say they had an available yellow action, they're going to spend 1 to add a yellow die as an opposed roll. And then the player that is using the movement will use their colored die for the movement, and then you will both roll these to see who wins. So the green here would have more than the opponent of 5, so 7 to 5. You would also double check any skills, so this skill has a reflex skill of 1, which is used to block a player from running through them. So it would actually turn this to a 6. However, my character still has more, so they will run right through them. And they will continue on with their action. And then they have now spent one of their available actions in order to do that. Those are all the basics of moving. There are a few more additional rules like dragging objects, but I will let you discover those in the rulebook. The next type of action you can take is a basic ranged action, or a ranged action using a piece of gear that you have. Before you make a ranged attack, you need to check your path of attack, which is going to be taking your limiter, using the width of it to see if an opposing model is within your path. So I'm going to put it on my model, it's going to go onto the enemy model here, and if it crosses through them without any obstruction, I have a path of attack to them. Sometimes it can be obscured with terrain, like this barrier here, but I can still see the model and they are within my path of attack. Other times the model is completely obscured by a barrier or an obstacle, and you would not be able to have a path of an attack to them to shoot them. So when taking a ranged attack, either using the basic ranged attack or using a piece of gear, you're going to spend an action token. So say I spend green here, which is my second action that I've used this turn, to use that corresponding die for the attack. And then I'm going to pick one of my weapons if I have one. So like I have a heavy pistol here, or I could just use a basic attack. I'm going to go ahead and use my heavy pistol. And you can see it is a ranged attack with this symbol, so it uses the ranged skill. I have a ranged skill of 2, so that's going to add +2 to my die roll when I'm doing a ranged attack. My opponent here will then choose one of their action tokens that they have, whether it's used or unused, and then it will add that color to their defense. Since they only have yellow, they will just use a yellow die. But keep in mind, any tokens that you use for a defense will be the ones that are affected by the attack if the attack is successful, which we will get to here shortly. Next, I'm going to roll these dice in the attack, and keep in mind any modifiers that you may have. I have a +2 to my ranged attack. They have a +1 to their reflex skill. So they have a +1 to defense. So I rolled a 10, they rolled a 2. My 10 would turn into a 12, their 2 would turn into a 3. Now, if the players have any luck tokens at this point, starting with the attacker, they may choose to spend a luck token to reroll a die. I'm not going to because right now I am at 12. But the opponent does have a luck token, so they're going to go ahead and spend it and reroll the die. They got a fumble, so they automatically fail. Now you can never reroll the same dice more than once. So even if I hadn't gotten that fumble, I still wouldn't have been able to reroll that. When a player takes a wound, whatever action token they decided to be used for their defense, it will get replaced with a corresponding red token, whether it was exhausted or not. You do not need to exhaust a token in order to defend against attack. So say they chose the unexhausted token to be their defense, so it would get replaced with an unexhausted red line token. Or they could have chosen to replace their exhausted token with an exhausted red wound token. Now, had there been an obstacle or barrier in between the ranged attack, the defending player would have gotten to add +1 to their reflex skill for each obstacle or barrier during that defense roll. Another example would be elevated attacks. If this character is within reach of the edge, they would have had a clear line of sight of path of attack to this defender. They would have gotten no defenses to the roll. However, if this opponent wanted to shoot up at my character, I would get +1 to my skill roll because there's a barrier in the way. Unless I am past the reach point, which means they actually can no longer see me to shoot and I can no longer see them to shoot. You have to be within reach of an edge of an elevation in order to attack. Another rule for shooting is if I am targeting a current brawl that is happening between one of my characters and an opponent character, I can still decide to shoot into that brawl. However, both characters will have to make opposed rolls, and whoever has the worst roll will be the one to take the wound. If there's any confusion on any type of ranged attack that you're making, just refer to the rulebook. There's lots of great examples in there that'll help you through it. The next type of action is a melee attack. You can perform a melee attack if an opponent is within red of your character, or if you have any kind of gear that would allow for a melee attack as well. In addition, you could also be within reach of another character, which puts you into a brawl. While you're within a brawl, you cannot shoot or do anything except for melee attack or try to escape. You can refer to escaping brawls on page 26 of the rulebook. Performing a melee works exactly as performing a ranged attack, except there's going to be no cover because you're within melee range. So depending on the action you chose to use a melee, so right now I have my last action, which is going to be a yellow token, which is going to give me a yellow die against my opponent's yellow die. Next, you're going to take a look at any skills you have. So I have a skill of 2 in melee, so that's going to add +2 to my roll. They have a skill of 2 in melee, which will also add +2 to the roll. So first, I'm going to go ahead and take my die, give it a roll. It's a 4 + 2, which is a 6. My opponent will roll theirs. They rolled a fumble, so they failed the melee action. So they will take a wound on one of their tokens that they chose to defend with. Now, they only had one token they could choose to defend with because had they chosen to defend with a red die, then they would have automatically been taken out if they would have taken a wound. So they will replace this yellow with this red. They are now what is considered redlined, meaning if they take one more wound, they are out of the game. In addition, whenever they're making any kind of defense rolls, attacking, or using anything that has to deal with red tokens, they're going to be rolling the red d6, as well as they can only move the red range on a limiter. Now, when a character takes a wound, they are not completely out of it just yet. If they have any available actions left to them, they can choose to do a reaction. A reaction can be a few different things, from moving to melee attacks to shooting, or even exerting control over another character so that they get to go before I would get to finish my turn. We'll go over into how influence works here shortly, but let's say they choose to use this action as a reaction to my attack to attack back. They will now be using a red die plus their modifier against my yellow die plus my modifier. They rolled a 5, 6, 7 to my 3, 4, 5. So they actually end up dealing a wound to me. I chose the yellow to be my defense, so it gets replaced with a red. I could have chosen a green instead, even though I had already used the token, but then it would have gotten replaced with the red had I taken a wound. So I chose to use a yellow because having the 2 green is a little bit better. So that is all the basics of using a melee attack action. At this point, I've used up all of my action tokens, and I have none left that I can use. So now, control would actually pass over to the opponent, and then they get to choose one of their models to use their actions, and so on, until each of us have used enough actions to where we want to refresh them. Now, you do not have to use all of your action tokens when you're activating a character. You could choose to just use one and then pass control and then come back to these characters later, or you could use all of them all at once. It is your choice. The next type of action a character can make is a basic med. This is where they attempt to heal a friendly redline character. To do this, you must be within reach of the friendly character you wish to heal. So in this case, my leader here is trying to heal this Kyodai. Since he has 2 wound markers, he's redlined. And in order to do this, I'm going to spend an action of the color that I choose. So let's say I spend a green action, so it'll give me a green die. And then you're going to base this against an obstacle die. If you have a med skill with a number on your card, it would apply to the roll, but in this case I do not, so I'll just do a basic roll of 7 against 3, so that would heal my friendly character one of their tokens, getting rid of it and replacing it, if it was used, a used token or unused token of the type that I chose to heal. The next action you can take is a basic tech action, where the character will target a friendly character within red that has a hacked token on their card, and they will attempt to remove it with a skill roll. They will choose whatever action token they wish to use, so in this case it'll be green, and it will also go against an opposed black die for the environment. You'll roll, and if you win the roll, it will remove the hack token. The last action you can take is a basic influence action. Any characters that are within red of another character may use this action to give that character control. So you might do this as your last action to give another character an action before your opponent gets it. So what would happen is you would use whatever action token you have available, so in this case green, and you would roll it against an opposed roll of the black die. And if you win, this character, as long as they have an active token, now has control and can use actions as if it were their turn. After this character goes, then the opponent will get to go carry on with one of their characters and so on. So in this way, you can use influence to have double turns over your opponent. Now say it's later in the round and I have used a bunch of my characters and their actions and I don't have much more that I can do. At this point, I might choose to inspire my team. This would allow me to flip over all of my activated tokens back to their activated side, and then control would pass over to my opponent and they can carry on with one of their characters. However, if you have any Gonks available, which in this case I have 2 on the board, they now get to take actions as if it were their turn, both of them. So since I have 2, they would both get to go, and they only have 1 action, which is usually yellow, so that could be a move, an attack, or so on. They all get to go, and then the opponent would get to go with one of their characters, and so on, back to one of my characters, and so on until the end of the game. Those are all the basic actions you can do during your turn. However, there are some additional things you can do, like Netrunning, which is usually free. Any Netrunners in your team will have cards associated with them for their Netrunning abilities, so in this case I have a crab drone I wish to deploy with high stick. The card's color will associate itself with the die of the type I will be rolling, and then you will also roll an obstacle die. And then double check any skills you have, so tech skill here with a tech skill of 3, so I will add 3 to my roll. So then I'll take those 2 dice, I'll give them a roll. So I rolled my dice here and I got a 6 to the obstacle die of 7. Now normally I would fail this roll, but since I have a tech skill of 3, it adds +3 to the roll, making it 9 to 7, which allows me to deploy 1 crab drone within red of my character, which is high stick. And then you're going to flip over the Netrunning card to its blue side, which shows that it is active. And then it'll tell you how it works here. And then it'll tell you how it refreshes. So in this case, when I inspire my team, it'll flip back over. And if I still have this drone out, I'll be able to put in another one out as well. So then I could potentially have 2 on the board. That is all the basics you need to know to play Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone. There are more rules in the book as well as campaign play, but I'll leave that for you to discover along with the keywords and everything else. I hope you enjoyed this video and that it was very informational for you. And if you enjoyed this content and you want to see more like it, go ahead and like and subscribe at the bottom of the screen. We have this game available in store along with all of the different gang packs and terrain, so I will have that linked in the description below for you, or you can always stop into the store and say hi. Thank you again for watching this How to Play Cyberpunk Red Combat Zone. I'm Patrick at Battlegrounds Game Center. Until next time, see you later.